3, 2, 1.
You ain't seen nothing yet. Hey everybody, welcome back for another week of our podcast. This week we have Meathead Goldwyn. Yes, I'm talking about the Meathead that has the amazing barbecue book that everybody loves. Meathead is the founder of AmazingRibs.com. He also is a critically acclaimed wine enthusiast and wine critic, and also he is a New York Times best-selling author. We had a great conversation with him. I know you're going to love this episode. And of course, it was with myself, Rachel Barnett, our co-host, Christopher Ryloff as well, our co-host. It was a great show. I know you're going to enjoy it. But before we get started with the episode, I want to send out a big thanks to our sponsor for today's episode, and that is Vitamix. Listen, as a chef, I'm only as good as the tools that are in my kitchen. And I love the Vitamix line of blenders. They have the best blending technology on the market. There's the XL, which is the 1.5 gallon powerhouse of a blender. There's also the quiet one that basically has a sound enclosure around the blending, which gives you quiet but still precise blending. They have an amazing line of product. And of course, their powerhouse, the one that you see probably used the most, is the VitaPrep 3. This thing will literally like chop your prep time in half. So anyway, big shout out to our sponsors. Let's get started with the show. Meathead Goldwyn, pleasure to have you on the show. I've always been a big fan. Honestly, I've always loved I found over the years, I've done a lot of Google searches for various content. And I was like, man, this Amazing Ribs website kind of keeps popping up, and it had like great content. Thank you. And I didn't realize for several years that you that was your baby, and kind of got that up and running, and that it had so much popularity. I mean, it's like you're talking like what, millions of people. Then of course the book is tremendous. I mean, I know a lot of people that are very high on the totem pole in the barbecue world, right into chefs, people that are like cooking in restaurants and stuff like that really point to that as an incredible, amazing resource. So we're really thrilled to have you on the show. Thank you very much.
Well, I'm flattered. And I know a lot about you and your place and your interest in grilling and smoking, and I've had the pleasure of sitting in on your seminars. So there's an old song, since I'm an old guy, you may not know it. We belong to a mutual admiration society.
That's totally appropriate. I mean, definitely a lot of cross-pollination in our worlds. I mean, there's a lot of crossover with the way we cook and the people that we know and the restaurants that we all love. So yeah, we were super thrilled. I mean, I definitely was excited to be able to have you on the show. So,
all right, enough of the slapping each other on the back. What do you want to talk about?
So, Meathead, my first question I have for you might be, I don't know, you probably have had this asked to you over the years, but how'd you get the name Meathead? What was the I'm just curious. I've always been a big nickname person over the years too. And, that was kind of the one thing that really, I took notice of when I first learned about you. So can you tell us that?
Well, I was born with it, Mom called me Meathead. No. It goes back to a television show in the 60s, 70s, Archie Bunker.
Yeah.
The lead character, Archie Bunker, was a lovable bigot. And his son-in-law was a very liberal guy, and he always called him Meathead. And back in the 60s, I was a hippie, and my dad would call me Meathead.
Wow.
And so it just kind of stuck, and I got involved in the internet in the 80s and 90s before anybody ever typed 3 W's in a row. And, in those days you needed a handle. You still do. You got to have an avatar, a nickname.
Right.
And so I just called myself Meathead. But in those days, I was a wino. I was the wine critic for the Washington Post and the Chicago Tribune.
Wow.
And I was into, I started the the World Wine Championships and the World Beer Championships and the World Spirits Championships. And I was deep into beverages, and I switched to solid food around the year 2000. And when I did, again, I needed a handle. Meathead was the obvious one, and it works. I tell you, when I call somebody's office and I say, tell them it's Meathead calling, they always remember me when I call back.
Yeah. It's awesome. And it's totally appropriate, considering, the world of barbecue and all the things that you've gotten into. So I love it. And I was just curious. So, when I was in high school, actually in junior high, one of my best friends, I nicknamed him Fig, F-I-G. And it was funny. I don't know why. It was just kind of that one-off thing, but it stuck with him over the years. His mom ended up calling him that. So I was kind of fascinated about the origin of a lot of names. So very cool. So Meathead, I'm curious. I mean, a lot of people we've had on the show, I mean, we've had like Michelin star chefs. We've had entrepreneurs, foodies, people that do a lot of different things in the culinary, the food industry. And I mean, as you know, 2020 has thrown like all kinds of it's kind of like we've been living in like a movie almost. It's been crazy. Yeah. But I mean, how has it impacted your business? I mean, you do a lot of stuff with the content creation, with Amazing Ribs, and obviously the book, but I'm sure it's kind of had an impact on you. So kind of tell us about that.
Well, it's on a personal level. We'll start there. I have a lot of friends who are chefs. And a lot of people whom I seek information from, that I use as guides, references, inspiration. And it's just killing me. It's just killing me what's happening. I mean, one of the more creative chefs I know is working in an Amazon warehouse now.
Wow.
I mean, that's a terrible loss for our society. For our website, very interestingly, when we all went into lockdown, people were forced to cook, and websites like mine, home cooking websites, got very busy. We doubled in traffic, and it really took off. A lot of grill manufacturers whom I know are sold out. I was talking with a woman in Toronto the other day, and she said she wanted to buy a charcoal grill, and she could only find gas grills in the hardware stores. But it's tapered off a bit. We're back kind of to normal traffic. We get 3 million page views a month, so that's a lot of traffic. But it went through the roof. And I was talking with Christopher Kimball at Milk Street. I'm sure you know him, and many of your listeners probably do. He's the guy with the bow tie, you see him on TV. He said that same thing happened with his site, doubled in spring. But there's a lot of people. I think if there's anything good going to come out of this, is that your audience will be better educated about food.
Right.
They'll know what a gastrique is. And they'll have experimented. They'll have tried new ingredients. And they're back in stock now. The grocery stores are pretty well stocked now. Meat prices are coming back down to normal. We may have come out of this with a society that is more knowledgeable about food and cooking.
Right. It is interesting and actually kind of even ironic that, yes, there's been shortages of inventory on like barbecue equipment, but also ironically like exercise equipment too. It's like, these things that you kind of take for granted, but it's just kind of crazy. But I do feel like a lot of people have been figuring out how to like recalibrate and still stay connected. I mean, obviously podcast and websites. I mean, that's been a huge conduit for the exchange of that information.
I hear my chef buddies now. I never heard the term before, but now they're all talking about ghost kitchens.
Right. Totally.
They're all talking about, okay, we're going to take the restaurant. We're going to enlarge the kitchen. We can sacrifice some of the dining area, and we're going to start sending our food out to little storefronts in strip malls where it's pickup only, and we're going to turn it into a production facility and get food trucks on the street. And so it's reinventing your industry. How are you dealing with it? What are you doing down there?
Well, it's kind of a little bit like putting a car together as it's going like full speed, like we're kind of like tightening everything on the way. And another analogy I use to a lot of people this year has been almost like running through bubble gum. It's like you're working, you're trying to work so hard, but it almost feels like you're in slow motion in some ways. Like it's kind of harder to get things done. And you don't feel like maybe you've kind of, you're not getting the same sales and everything in some aspects, but chefs are, they're creative and they're innovative. They're relentless, people in our industry. And, I'm confident that, we'll figure out a way to get through this and kind of, essentially reinvent. It's been really a crazy year already.
Ain't over yet.
Meathead, Chris here. I just wanted to, you were talking a little bit about your website and how it ran kind of like it went double the traffic that you used to have like every month. How do you, I would expect that your website was going to be called meathead.com, right? So how do you came up with the name of Amazing Ribs, and what was the main goal when you started it?
Well, that's very interesting. I had a business called Beverage Testing Institute, and it's still out there. I sold the company in the year 2000, and we ran the American World and World Wine Championships, World Beer Championships, World Spirits Championships. We even published a magazine called International Wine Review, and I sold it. I sold the magazine, I sold the company, and the guy who's running it now is doing a really nice job. And I just wanted to reinvent myself, and I was very interested in food and cooking. And I decided, I would. But also, I had done my undergraduate work in journalism, and my master's degree was in photography and art, actually. And then I had built this website for the Beverage Testing Institute. It's called tastings.com. It's still out there. It's a nice website. And I thought I'd kind of roll all those together and maybe play with web development. In the year 2000, it looked like a growth field, and it had all three of my skill sets. And so I built this website called AmazingRibs.com about barbecue because it was a passion of mine. And I needed a website to demonstrate that I could build websites. And I named it Amazing Ribs because in those days, there was no Google, and Yahoo was the leading search engine.
Wow. And
a lot of things, and the internet was listed alphabetically. So, I was like, in the yellow pages, AAA
right.
towing, I was going to be Amazing Ribs. I was going to be the first one. And I thought, well, okay, I'll start with ribs because I want to do a book maybe about barbecue, and this was in 2005. I didn't get the book out until 2016.
Wow.
But it just kind of took off. Google took off. Google discovered us. Google loved us. People discovered Google, and we went through the roof. We were among the very, very few barbecue websites, maybe the only one in those days. And, the first one in the game gets a lot of attention. And we expanded beyond ribs into all forms of outdoor cooking. And, right now I'm playing with tandoor cooking. I'm playing with fire pit cooking. It just all outdoor cooking. That's our theme now.
Meathead, before we go on to the next question, I'm just kind of curious with the website, have you seen, I imagine when it first started, you probably had a lot of people like regional in the United States, like very much like barbecue, but have you seen it grow in other parts of the world? Because I feel like American barbecue, that there's been an interest and a fascination with that.
It's not a major part of our website for traffic, but we do. We have a number of members. from the Southern Hemisphere, from Asia, Europe. One of our moderators is in Sweden. We have we do Zoom webinars also on Thursday this week. We're doing a Zoom webinar on cooking with logs, and one of our panelists is from Argentina, a member of our Pitmaster Club. Yeah, we have, but it's not a huge part. Barbecue is really a part of the American lifestyle. It is a popular hobby in Germany. It's very big in South Africa, also fairly big in Australia. But their ideas about cooking on barbecue or cooking outdoors or cooking over flame are very different than ours. For example, South Africa, it's almost all what one might call a brazier, an open top grill. They're really, it's not part of their cooking style to put a lid on it and roast, or Australia for that matter. It's almost all open top. So there's an exchange of intelligences.
Sorry, I wanted to just ask one more question about Amazing Ribs.
Did I just see you waving my book around?
Yeah, I have it full of.
Oh my God! Look at all the Post-it notes.
To be honest,
he's going to be busy. A lot of recipes to cook.
Whenever I went to the first class that Rich was doing about barbecue, and I started asking for like books and everything later on, and between Rich and Ken Hess, they told me these are the books that you should totally buy to keep learning about barbecue. And this one, I can tell you, this one is the one that it got the most posted.
Oh my goodness!
It was like, but the information is great. So about Amazing Ribs, do you have any upcoming project or anything new? You just said about the Zoom webinars that you're already doing, that they're not a big part of it, but probably they could be, because everything is moving, is kind of like digital right now. So do you have anything new that is coming up?
Well, we began as a normal website where we had lots of articles, recipes, and then we expanded into product reviews. I hired a guy, Max Good. His full-time job is testing grills and smokers. What a cool job, huh?
I was going to say, that's a fun job.
Yeah, how do I got a guy working for me with a better job than I have. And all he does is test grills and smokers. We have an electrical engineer. He's part-time, but he tests thermometers. And if you're ever out there looking for good digital thermometers, we have a very rigorous testing system with specialized equipment, because thermometers are so important to cooking, not just outdoors, but indoors as well. So we have a very rigorous part of the website that's product testing. But back in 2014, we tried something that worked really well. We decided to create a community. We know that barbecue, people, since the beginning of time, we've all huddled around the fire, right? Right. It's a communal activity. And we launched what we call the Pitmaster Club. And it's a message board, a forum environment, but there's a fee. It's $24 a year, and it keeps us alive. We have 16,500 paid members.
Wow,
you can do the math. That's a business model. Advertising, you can't survive as a website on advertising. The rates continue to dive down. Supply and demand. There's just so much real estate out there.
Yep.
That advertising rates are very low right now. You just can't make a living at that. Big websites, food websites like Epicurious and others, they have big companies behind them. We don't. I'm the sole proprietor, and so this Pitmaster Club, we have some real benefits to membership. We're not just begging for money. We have a lot of cool features and stuff we're doing with the Pitmaster Club members, but it is what's keeping us alive, and it allows us to do fun stuff. So some of the things we're doing with them now is this this webinar on Wednesday. We have monthly webinars on a topic. We did seafood last month, and they're good deep dives. We have a conference that we're convening next August in Memphis. There's never been a conference for barbecue lovers. We're going to have a conference, which is another word for a party.
Yeah.
We're going to have a conference in Memphis with demonstrations. You may know Chef Jim Murray from the Pork Board. He's going to be there. We got a bunch of great barbecue cooks coming in, and there's going to be demonstrations, whole hog cooking, and then we're going to get on buses and go visit the great Memphis barbecue joints and have a lot of fun. That's a new venture there, a new project that we're trying. And foolishly, I've started writing another book.
We probably have more time now on your hands to do that, even though.
No, I don't. It's just killing me. The book is way behind deadline, and I'm running a business. You know what it's like. There are 12 people that work for me, not full time. I think only 4 or 5 are full time, more or less, but the rest are part time. And the technical aspects of it are just mind-boggling. And there's with the Pitmaster Club, there's a lot of interactivity. It's a lot of fun. I really do enjoy my job, but it's just like any other entrepreneurial venture. If you watch Shark Tank, and I think a lot of us in business people do, you want to reach out and grab some of these people by the throat and say, you've got $100,000 a year job with health care, 3 weeks paid vacation, and you're going to give it all up for that little stupid gadget that they just refuse to finance, and you go backstage and they got the camera on you and say, I'm going to keep trying? The hell's the matter with you? Entrepreneurship, we tout it as the great savior of American business, but it's a mind killer. It's a killer.
Yeah, it's a great sacrifice and great reward all wrapped up into one. Hey, everybody, I just want to take a quick break and let you know that you can listen to all of our episodes on iTunes, Spotify, and everywhere you find your favorite podcast. And again, a huge thank you. This show would not be possible without our sponsor, Vitamix. Now, let's dig in and get back to the show. But you really kind of showed, though, like with the website, and I think this is something for people that are maybe budding entrepreneurs that maybe want to use a website as their storefront, that at the end of the day, whatever the product is, it still has to be great. And if it's a resource, that's really what's going to get people to keep kind of coming back. It's got to be a compelling product. And like, again, for me, for years, I've been using that website, going there because there's been interesting conversations. And, I'm a certified master chef. I'm going to a website that there's a conversation about the cooking temperature, it's great content. And I think that's really what people need to point to.
But I should clarify something. It's not a storefront for us. We don't sell anything. We do not sell a thing. I don't even sell my own book. You want to buy my book, go to Amazon.
Right.
And that's because we review products.
Right.
You can't review products and then sell products and remain unbiased.
Totally. Good point.
So the only thing we do sell is membership in our Pitmaster Club. And that's a great value. We have a lot of benefits to membership, and it's a lot of fun. If anybody out there listening is interested, go to AmazingRibs.com/Pitmaster, and there's all the benefits are listed there.
That's awesome. So with you being a Pitmaster and knowing the ins and outs of barbecue, what is the biggest mistake that you see people commit with barbecuing?
Cook too hot. They throw all kinds of charcoal or turn up the gas burners to high. And anybody who knows anything about food, particularly meat, all they're doing is squeezing the juice out. Moisture, proteins contract, muscle fibers contract, the juices squeeze out, they burn food. They really need to learn two-zone cooking. That is, you have a hot side that is infrared radiation, that is the sear zone, and then you have a not hot side where there is no heat, just convection airflow, and that is the indirect heat zone, and that's where you roast, and you almost always do reverse sear. You almost always start on the indirect side, then you gently warm the meat so you don't squeeze out the juices, and then you finish it over high heat and do your sear at the end, not the beginning. Basic core concept. I could talk about why it's this crucial concept for an hour, because there's a lot of subtlety to it. There's physics and chemistry to it, but that's a technique that anybody who cooks on a grill needs to learn. The other one is thermometers. A medium rare steak is 130 to 135 degrees, period. We know, because there's a machine called the Warner-Bratzler machine that they use that puts pressure on meat, and they can tell when it is most tender and when it is most juicy. And we know that in that temperature range, meat is most tender and most juicy. So that's your target range. Now you can't tell by poking it. There are still hundreds of websites out there that I've got a picture from one of them on my desktop here.
While you're pulling that up, Meathead, don't you think that there's a lot of parallels to like barbecue and sous vide as far as like the time, even though they're different cooking applications, just like with the time and temperature and the denaturing of protein and the breaking down of, still getting a great succulent product after a long cook?
Oh, well, I mean, all manner of cooking. I mean, cooking is chemistry and physics. And you need to understand the basics of cooking, chemistry and physics, and to be a good cook. There we go. I got a bunch of stuff in the background.
Oh, this is great. I love this.
I mean, you see this on all over the place. Mm-hmm. The meat hand test. I think this is BuzzFeed.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I've seen this over the years.
Yeah, this is from BuzzFeed.
Yeah.
And this is all over the internet, and there's variations everywhere. I mean, come on now.
Right.
Everybody's hand is different. If you work out every day, your hand is nice and tight and taut.
Right.
I'm an overweight old man, and my hand is and a filet mignon is different than a sirloin.
Right.
I mean, this is something else that I think that if you've looked at the book, and I gather you have, that we have had a great deal of fun with, and that's myth busting. The idea that you can tell when meat is done by poking it is just a silly old myth. But that comes from the fact that most of us learn to barbecue from our parents,
mm-hmm.
who learn from their parents, so it's handed down. And a lot of this comes down to us from traditional French and Asian cooking. And we have digital thermometers now. We have instruments like immersion circulators. We understand what's going on inside that slab of meat, inside that carrot, and we know better than our parents did. And there's just an awful lot of mythology surrounding barbecue that we've had a lot of fun busting. And it applies to sous vide. It applies to all forms of cooking. Every time you step into the kitchen, you are commencing a physics or chemistry experiment.
I think what you just said about the thermometer and everything is great. And like you said, I mean, there is a couple of more myths that you have in the book that they're great. And one of the one that I loved, it was about the juice that the beef, if the beef lose juices or not before you cut it when you take it out of the grill pan or barbecue, whatever how you're cooking it. And that was like, it's great to read that. And I would recommend the book to everyone just for those little tips. It has a lot of information, but there is so many like those myths that you just said. They're great to know.
It comes with the science. It's fun.
Right.
And I think that's one of the reasons the book has sold 200,000 copies. which is extraordinary.
Wow,
for a
that's
cookbook.
amazing.
Yeah, it's extraordinary for a cookbook. The book has two parts. The first part is really a science textbook.
It's the science. You're right.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a whole chapter on fire, smoke. We explain that we should stop talking about heat. We should be talking about energy. There's a difference between heat and energy. And I'll give you a great example of this. And this always opens people's eyes. Go turn on your indoor oven and set it for 200 degrees. And when it comes up to temp, open the door and stick your arm in there. You can do this. It's not going to burn your hair off your arm. You can actually hold your hand inside a 200-degree oven for a little bit. Now, turn your hand and touch the side of that oven. It's 200 degrees. When you get back from the hospital, you'll understand that 200-degree metal and 200-degree air are very different.
Right.
And we're talking about temperature when we say 200 degrees. But the energy stored in the metal, the energy transferred from the metal is so different. And that's the core concept, a core concept of cooking. It's energy we're dealing with, not heat. It's not temperature. It's the energy that is what is causing the food to cook. And that's really a crucial concept. Once you wrap your head around that, you get to understand why you want to have a two-zone setup on a grill. You want infrared radiant energy on one side. That's how you sear a steak, with infrared radiation. You can't sear a steak in a 400-degree oven because warm air won't sear. But you can sear a steak on over infrared radiation. You're not going to get a sunburn when you're standing under a tree. But when you step out into the ultraviolet radiation, you can get a sunburn. And they're similar. They're different wavelengths on the scale, but it's the same concept.
And that really even kind of like echoes a lot of things we talk to people about with sous vide cooking, where, well, why do you cook things in a water bath? Well, the water happens to distribute the heat more efficiently than just an ambient dry oven. And then even the oven, if there was steam in there or some humidity, that begins to change the way in which that heat is distributed as well. But I mean, that's why, I mean, I could talk to you like all day long, because I mean, I think that it's fascinating to understand the why. And that's what we always try to talk to people about, is the why of what you're cooking. It's not just, and like with barbecue, it's almost been kind of like folklore. Like people would just pass recipes down and they didn't really know why they were doing it this way. It's just like, well, that's the way for generations, our family or our restaurant, that's how they've always done it. But book
you talk
really
about sous
reveals.
vide, it's in water because the water transfers energy better. And that's why you don't want air in the bag.
Right.
Because air is an insulator. There's just an awful lot of this mythology that we have disproved. Another classic is, you can't see, but over here, I must have every barbecue book ever written. And they all tell you to soak your wood chips in water.
Right. Yeah, right.
And now let's just think about this for a minute. Wood. They build boats out of wood, don't they?
Right.
You know why? Because wood doesn't absorb water.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Now, wait a minute. Water turns to steam at 212 degrees, but wood doesn't combust until 500-600 degrees. So if you take wood chips in chunks and get a handful of them and weigh them on your kitchen scale, and then soak them, not just for an hour like the books tell you, soak them overnight. And then pat the surface water off and weigh them again. There's only about a 2 or 3% weight gain. Crack them open. There's no water on the inside. It can't soak in. Now the surface, which is a little fuzzy, will hold some water. Now you throw them on your fire. Well, if you've got a charcoal fire, it's really important that you get the temperature stabilized. I mean, you want to cook at a stable temperature. Now you've just thrown water on your fire. You're cooling off your fire. Not a good idea. And all that smoke that comes up, hold a mirror over it. It's steam. It's not smoke.
Right.
Yeah. So why are we soaking our wood chips? Now let's go a step further. People often write to me and say, I've got a gas grill and I want to get some smoke in my cooking. I throw wood on the fire, but it just catches on fire and burns up in a hurry. How do I prevent that? You don't want to. When wood combusts, when there's a bright yellow flame with a blue tip, it's burning off impurities. The smoke that comes from combusting wood is better than the smoke that comes off from smoldering wood. That white puffy smoke is nice tasting, but it's not as good tasting as what we call blue smoke. And blue smoke is almost invisible because the particles are so small, because the impurities have been burned off. So let that wood chunks and chips catch on fire. You'll get a better tasting smoke. So wetting the wood chips not only doesn't give you more smoke, it just gives you a bunch of steam, but it interferes with the ability of its combustion, and that's what you want. So big myth right down the drain. And I'm telling you, I could close my eyes and reach out and grab any book, and it'll tell you to soak the wood.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Meathead, you've traveled a lot and seen different types of barbecue over the years, obviously all the different cookbooks. Is there any of the regions in the United States of barbecue that you feel like you kind of have more of an affinity to? Anything that you just say, oh, man, I could always go for, Texas barbecue or ribs or...
Well, I've never been asked that. Yeah, I spent a lot of my youth in Florida, and people don't think of Florida as barbecue, but there is a indigenous style of smoking fish down there, smoked mullet.
Wow.
Mullet is a vegetarian fish. You don't catch it with bait normally. It's caught with nets.
Interesting.
And it's about the same size as a trout. And they gut it and butterfly it and season it and smoke it. And it's not very good any other way. It's kind of like bluefish up on the New Jersey coast in Long Island. Kind of oily. But smoked, it's just delicious. And smoked and grilled seafood. I mean, you ask any chef, barbecue chef, or you got a nice piece of fresh fish. What do you do with it? Get out of the way. Just get the hell out of the way. Salt and pepper. Don't overcook it. Here's where your thermometer comes in handy. 125 to 135 maximum. And just get out of the way. You don't need barbecue sauce. You don't
need a whole lot.
A lot of spices and herbs. Just let the flavor come through. And grilling really amplifies seafood flavor. I mean, it just a little touch of smoke. The flame, really. So yeah, it goes back to my youth. I'm a Florida Gator, class of '71. Go Gators!
Awesome.
And seafood over flame.
Awesome.
I'm in.
Yeah, I love that. I'm gonna have to try that.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, smoked oysters.
Oh yeah.
Jam. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And Meathead, we just finished up too doing the International Sous Vide Association summit.
You and I were both honored to be speakers.
Yeah, that was very cool. And I was kind of curious though. I mean, is there any ways that you would kind of advise listeners as to like how to kind of merge or marry barbecue and sous vide, and I believe you actually have a book that you did with that as well.
I enjoy playing with the two. Mm-hmm. I actually coined the term sous vide Q, which I think some people are using with
I like that
comfort, as it's sous vide mixed with barbecue. Well, as anybody who's done sous vide knows, and I'm sure your audience is familiar with the concept, when you come out of the bag, the food is just perfectly cooked. It's very tender, very juicy, but you're missing one thing. It's butt ugly, and you don't have the flavor that comes from the Maillard reaction, which is a chemical reaction where proteins and amino acids and some of the reducing sugars turn brown and create all kinds of new flavors. In barbecue, we call it the bark or crust. And you can get that by throwing it in a hot pan or on a grill, or you can get a torch to it, or you can throw it in a smoker. And so at the sous vide conference, that's what I spoke about. I did a presentation on the various ways you can apply smoke and fire to sous vide products, and the strengths and weaknesses of it. For example, I've played with, which is better, smoking it before it goes in the bag or smoking after the bag. And clearly to me, it's after the bag is better. You can get a little flavor when you smoke it beforehand, but the smoke flavors are very ephemeral, very volatile. And there's a lot of purge, a lot of liquid that comes out of the meat in the bag, and it washes off. So if you want to put smoke on meat, take it out of the bag, put it on the smoker, and it'll pick up smoke in a hurry. You won't get a smoke ring because the smoke ring comes from only cold meat, and that's a whole nother chemical reaction we can talk about. But so that's a great technique. Throw it on the smoker or in smoke. There's a technique that I call proximity or close smoking. There's a product on the market. I'm not selling this. I don't get paid for endorsing it. Called grill grates. And you probably know what they are, but grill grate is a unusual grate that you use on your grill, and it has sort of a solid bottom and then rails. Imagine railroad track rails that are connected at the bottom, and then there's holes in the plate that connects them, and they do a great job of evening out the heat. But because this rail is maybe a ½ inch raised from the plate, you can throw sawdust or wood chips or wood pellets in between them. And with seafood, you can put smoke onto a piece of fish, which is going to cook fast in a hurry. And that's a great technique. So we wrote a book on this called Sous Vide Q Made Easy. And it's an ebook. And it's $3.99. That's all.
Oh, cool. Okay.
And it has everything I know about sous vide Q. It's about 150, 200 pages, a lot of pictures, and a lot of links.
Oh.
And that's why it's an ebook. I got links to all kinds of references and resources. So if you're new to sous vide, it'll get you up to speed, and it'll take you to the places where you can buy the equipment or learn more about the techniques. But it talks about how to apply smoke and flame to sous vide. It's called Sous Vide Q Made Easy. It's a Kindle book. tinyurl.com/sous vide Q, QUE.
Okay.
That's it. tinyurl.com/sous vide Q, QUE. It takes you right to the Amazon page where you can buy it for $3.99. And if you're a Kindle Direct or whatever they call it, you get it for free.
I believe there's a lot of people like home cooks even now that are doing a lot of sous vide, almost even as much as there has been in the professional industry. People have really taken a liking. And I think there's also the same affinity for barbecue. So I think people really like kind of connecting those dots.
It's crossing the streams.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
That's
Some
awesome.
Ghostbusters.
Meathead, what is your go-to barbecue dish or dishes?
My go-to? Well, this is going to shock you, ribs. I mean,
it's actually
who doesn't love ribs? I mean,
which kind?
Pardon?
Which kind of ribs?
Pork ribs. Either baby back or St. Louis cut. St. Louis cut a little more. There's a little more flavor and fat and juiciness to St. Louis cut. But I mean, the part of the fun, aside from the fact they taste great, is you get to eat with your hands. This is just primitive. You're gnawing on the bones, and it's just
fun.
it gets the caveman out.
It's fun,
yeah.
right?
and it's a little sweet. If you use a Kansas City style sauce, it's a little sweet, and we like our sweet foods, and it's fatty, it's flavorful. And it's got smoke, it's got rubs, spices, it's got everything. So yeah, that's a go-to. Right now, the new book I'm working on, the last book, is called Meathead: The Science of Great Barbecue and Grilling. And there's a lot of science in there, as I mentioned. The book I'm working on now, which won't be out till spring 22, if I get to it, is called The Meathead Method: Barbecue Science Meets Art. And I actually did my master's in art. And I'm trying to talk about getting outside the box for the barbecue lovers, the people who are in our Pitmaster Club who are really into barbecue and they're doing brisket and pulled pork. And I want them to learn more about Asian ingredients. I want them to learn more about Indian. I want them to learn more about Spanish. And I'm crossing the streams in here. I mean, we've got Spanish and Asian in the same recipe. I'm just having a lot of fun inventing new techniques and recipes, experimenting, creating new approaches. I just did one last week that was kind of fun. I had some really good salmon, and I wanted to try a miso and maple glaze. You know what? I said, get out of the way on fish. I know. But salmon does take nicely to salt, and it does take nicely to a little bit of sweetness. And I didn't want to get too much on it, but so I thought I'd maybe cross-hatch it like you would a duck breast, just to get a little of the flavor to move inside. And then I thought, well, wait a minute. I had this mixing bowl that I will often drape fish over that will help me find the pin bones. If you've got a fish fillet and it's got pin bones in it, if you take a mixing bowl and turn it upside down, you can drape the fish over it and run your hand over it, and it'll make the bones stick out. So I had done that. Now I had just cross-hatched. Well, I put it back on there and painted it, and so that the flavor got down into the cross-hatches. And it was an interesting technique. And so miso, which is, Asian, and maple, which is New England, kind of crossing the stream. And this creative technique. And then I did it skin on, and I never turned it. I just cooked it over medium-high heat. I had this old herb de Provence bag. It had been sitting around and it was just, it wasn't fresh at all. So I took these herbs de Provence and threw them on my gas grill, put the fish skin side down right above the herb de Provence. It must have smelled like I was burning marijuana. Well, it did smell like that, I know. But I got, when you're cooking fish, if you want smoke, you got to get it fast. You got to get it in a hurry. Then I laid the bowl that I had put the fish on top of the fish to capture the smoke. Sounds like a rigmarole, and I'm not telling the story in the proper order. But the bottom line is I got a really nice, delicate fish with a little miso, a little maple, and a little smoke. And it all worked out quite nicely. And that will be in the book.
That's awesome.
Sounds delicious.
Well, I know we're getting pretty close here, coming up on an hour. So I think we'll each one of us maybe just take one more question if you got the time, Meathead. And
I'm here as long as you want. I love talking.
Well, we could talk to you like all day. I mean, it's really just fascinating discussion. So, Christopher, you want to go first?
I would say I have this one that I think is pretty interesting. If you weren't a barbecue whisperer or a culinary myth debunker, what would you like to be doing?
Oh, that's easy.
Sure it's easy because you're like you have so many different like studies in your head already. So it's like I was like, what he would do if he's not this.
I did my master's in art, and I thought I would be an artist. And so this next book, which has art in the title, in which I talk about culinary art as an art form, I am hoping to, I'm doing all the photography, and I hope to amp up my photographic skills and demonstrate a new level of photography. I'm going to share a screen again.
Oh, cool.
You're the one that does all your books?
I did all the photography in the last book. And nice. This is an image from my new book.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
That is beautiful.
That's called vinaigrette. And it's a technique called light painting. And most of the images in the book are done with light painting. It's done with essentially a flashlight.
Okay.
And in a dark room, and the camera lens stays open for maybe 20 seconds. And I have a studio in my basement, and so
That's beautiful.
I'm very proud
Yeah,
of it.
that's amazing.
Yeah. There's a lot of Photoshop work, so it is in fact a lot of painting. And so
How long does it take to do an image like that?
that image took about 30 minutes to photograph. Each object in the image is photographed separately. They're all together.
Okay.
All right, let's pull it back up here for a second. Stand by.
And what is that style again called, Meathead?
It's called light painting. I can
Okay.
provide you with some links to more of my images. But you have to photograph the tomato, then the onion, then the salt and pepper shaker, then the little puddle of salt. Each of them are photographed separately to get them exactly right. And then this this bottle of olive oil has to be lit from behind, not from in front. You can see where the light's coming from, like on the lemon. It's coming from up around 2 o'clock, but it's coming from behind. So the lights are coming from different directions.
So does the flashlight almost kind of highlight each one of those ingredients like independently?
Yeah, and then each one is assembled so that so there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, maybe a dozen different
Is that the Eiffel
photographs
Tower?
assembled. Pardon?
Is that the Eiffel Tower?
Yeah, I found it in an antique store. It's a
Nice.
it's an Eiffel Tower bottle.
Very cool.
Hey,
beautiful.
you can't see
picture.
it very clearly here, but the image is quite high resolution. I mean, I can blow it up to about 5 foot. And
Wow.
Oh, wow.
yeah, so
That's amazing. So we know you're doing all sorts of recipe testing and development, but I'm always curious, what are you cooking at home? Or are your recipes that you're developing, is that what you're cooking at home?
yeah, that's but lately, my wife's doing all the cooking. I've just had a ridiculously busy summer with various projects, and I haven't had a chance to do much cooking that as I want. In the past was about 50-50, but she's been doing so much of the cooking this summer. She's a good cook. She's probably the best cook in the house. She's a PhD food safety microbiologist. She was very high rank, just retired from the FDA. Very high ranking food safety scientist. So if you eat here, you won't get sick.
I love that.
You're in good hands.
That's awesome.
Meathead, 2020, my last question would be, 2020 has just been filled with like so much adversity and so much, like I said, it was like almost kind of like living through this like a movie, and it's like one thing after another. And of course you've seen, the California fires, all this stuff. I mean, what do you hope that like we will learn from this, from all this adversity? I mean, do you feel like, or is there anything positive that you hope that we kind of take from this year, that any good that can kind of come from all of this turbulence that we've faced?
Boy, well, I've already mentioned that I think that we will come out of this with a citizenry that maybe knows a little more about cooking and food. In the scope of things, weighed against 200,000 dead, probably not a major accomplishment. But for those of us who think food and drink is crucial to a full life, that I think will be nice. My biggest fear and concerns are the restaurants. The farmers will be okay. The meat processors will learn how to keep their people safe. These restaurateurs, most of them are renting. They don't own their building. The landlord can only extend them free or discounted rent for a while. And then what do? I mean, if they shut them down, they've got an empty building. There's nobody paying rent. I mean, who are they going to rent it to? Amazon?
Right.
And then the chef who owns the restaurant has hundreds of thousands of dollars invested in tables and chairs and bar and equipment and kitchen and dishwasher and ovens. And what are they going to do? Pull it out of the restaurant and put it in a warehouse? They can't afford the warehouse space. Right. So it's just an abyss, and I don't see what's going to happen. I know it's going to present opportunity. People who have a lot of money will be able to swoop in and take over these empty spaces. And but my heart bleeds when I hear of a great chef who's working in an Amazon warehouse.
Right.
I mean, this book I'm working on is all about creativity and artistry, and there are so many chefs like yourselves that I admire for their ability to open a refrigerator door and see a meal, not just ingredients, and it's like cutting the tongue off a trumpetist. I mean, I don't know how we're going to survive that aspect of it. I don't know that there is a lot of good that's going to come from it. I think it's going to take us a very long time to resolve these problems. I think we're going to see a diminution of first responders, healthcare people. They're at their wits' end. How many of them are going to leave the field? Teachers, so many of them have quit. I don't know. And then what's so frightening? I'm sorry, I'm painting a terrible picture. You wanted me to give you something positive, but I mean, now we've got all these people running around doubting the science.
Right.
And if anything can help us, it's the science. I mean, if there is a solution to this, it's that, okay, folks, we have just faced an epidemic. How do we prevent this from happening again? I know how. Let's do research. Let's have vaccines at the ready. Let's get prepared. I mean, this is called the novel coronavirus, but there are other coronaviruses around. They could have had coronavirus vaccines in advanced stages that could have been adapted to meet this novel coronavirus, but they didn't. Our government didn't provide the funds. So I'm sorry, I'm off the deep end now.
No, I think there are important comments and observations for people to consider, and they are real serious conditions that we're in.
This society is forever changed.
Yeah,
or at least for a very long time.
The one thing, as I have talked to a lot of restaurateurs over the last several months, and obviously being a restaurateur myself, I mean, I try to find a path of like, how do you go forward and share that with the other entrepreneurs. And the one thing I would say to look at from the eating standpoint is that today there are still, for the most part, the same amount of people that are still eating every day. Now they're eating differently. And in our industry, at least you still have that demand. Now the model has broke for sure. We have to figure out how to connect the dots for those chefs to still be creating those experiences and those meals. Whereas something like maybe the airline industry, clearly there are less people traveling on planes every day. But we do have to figure out and like redefine, reinvent, I guess, how do we get those meals to those customers, to those guests that we were so used to serving. I mean, Rachel can tell you, we should be very, very busy right now in Atlanta at our event space. We have 120,000 square feet of event space, and nearly 99% of the business is evaporated for this year. Trying to sort out, like, what does that look like next year or the next 6 months? I mean, it's definitely going to take some creative thinking, but like you said, science is going to play a big role in having a vaccine. But I do think even in our time talking with you, there is something comforting in the conversation and the experience of food. I mean, I can tell you this hour with you has gone by. It felt like it's been 15 minutes, and we really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
But I do think that can
go home
play
and
a role.
cook,
Yeah.
I
right.
mean, okay, let's look at that aspect of it. The second most intimate act one person can do for another is to feed someone.
Mhm.
I mean, you're putting something in their body. You're giving them nourishment. It's definitely an act of love. Now we're cooking at home. We're feeding ourselves. We're feeding our family. We're getting more comfortable in the kitchen. We're hopefully learning a few new dishes. We're adding to our repertoire. And we're sitting down to dinner together. Before this, we always heard parents complain, I can't get the family together. They're off to soccer practice and piano lessons
Right.
and cheerleading. And now we sit down to dinner together. So aside from the inevitable fights at the table, there's got to be some good coming out of that, and the love that we share. We all huddled around the fire in the cave, and let's go out back and start a fire and throw some meat on it and bring it in and sit around and eat it and talk about the world and get to know each other. And so maybe that is something really beneficial to come out of this.
Well, that's a good, great comments there to kind of close on. And Meathead, if people want to find out more about you, where can they go?
You just Google Meathead, or AmazingRibs.com is the website that I own, and I'm there on an ongoing basis. You can ask questions. We have a team of paid moderators who are really knowledgeable, that are there to answer questions. The book, Amazing Ribs, Meathead, The Science of Great Barbecue and Grilling, is in most bookstores, and on Amazon. It's the best-selling barbecue book out there, and it's
Highly
a lot
recommend
of fun.
it.
I think you guys will attest. It's educational. There's some good recipes in there, and we got a lot of recipes on the website, and I'm easy to reach. I mean, if you, I'm on social media, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Twitter. It's not hard to find me.
Well, hopefully next year, things kind of settle down with, we have a more tame year next year than what we did in 2020.
Hopefully.
But you always have an open invitation to come and visit us here in Northern Virginia. We have our culinary lab and our barbecue restaurant, and we'd love to cook some ribs with you. So thank you so much. Yeah,
I would dearly love to.
We would love to do that.
I love traveling. I hope to get back to it soon.
Us too.
Awesome.
Meathead, thank you so much, and
Thank you.
take care. We really enjoyed it.
Always
Thank you.
my pleasure. Let's do it
Bye-bye.
again.
We will. Take care. Hey, everybody. Thank you very much for listening to the podcast. If you want to see all of our episodes, you can go to YouTube at Rosendale Collective. We've got all of the episodes. A huge thank you to Meathead Goldwyn. He was a great guest. We've got lots more coming up. And also thanks to all of our sponsors. Vitamix Corporation, they are amazing. They are the leaders in blending technology. We're huge fans. That's what we use in all of our kitchens. Also, Verlasso Salmon. It's some of the best salmon on the planet. It's buttery, farm-raised out of South America, and it's delicious. It's what we serve in our restaurants. Also, the Comey software app. If you want to go to their website, comey.com, that's what we use to organize all of our recipes for our restaurants and for our cooking classes. It's outstanding. You can also use it for home use. And also Henkelman. These days there's all kinds of different vacuum sealers out there. For any of you that cook sous vide and you want a more sophisticated, smarter piece of equipment for cooking sous vide and for vacuum packaging all of your product, check out the entire line of Henkelman product. They are innovators and they've got amazing hardware. Also check out the International Sous Vide Association. These guys have put together an amazing organization. They host summits, they do workshops, anything sous vide, they've got you covered. So thanks again. Check us out next week when we have another episode of the Let's Dig In podcast. Thanks to my co-hosts, Christopher Ryloff and Rachel Barnett, and we will see you next week. Thank you very much.